Hello everyone, it's Paul Driscoll here, aka the Drisk, and today I wanted to cover a real favourite of mine, which is the HeroQuest game, released back in 1991 and published by Gremlin Graphics. Now, they released the game on pretty much every version that was around at the time. There's the Amiga, the Atari ST, the Acorn Archimedes, PC DOS, and on the 8-bits you had the Spectrum, Amstrad and C64. Now, all are really good versions and essentially identical in terms of gameplay, so I won't go through each version here, but instead I'll just cover what I consider the best version, and that is the Amiga version, although I should note the Atari ST version is almost identical. But before going into the game itself, let me quickly talk about the board game of which it's based upon and why I love this game so much. You see, back in 1989, a board game had been released that my 12-year-old self was massively into. That game was HeroQuest by Milton Bradley, who had done a deal with Games Workshop to do a simpler version of their fantasy Warhammer games. Now, this was great because at the time I really loved the world of Warhammer. I would avidly read stories in White Dwarf and get some of the models from the Games Workshop shop. But in terms of actually playing the Warhammer game, me and my friends, more often than not, would have to pack everything away for tea before just doing a few moves in the game. So we never really got to actually play it. So, when HeroQuest, the board game, came along, I was hugely excited, as it combined the fantasy world that fascinated me with a game that you could learn in just a few minutes. Also, the board game had actual fantasy models of the heroes, enemies, and even 3D versions of the furniture and doors, allowing massive possibilities for a fertile young mind. So, that Christmas of 1989, and on finally getting the board game, I was questing with anyone who would want to play it and loving every minute of it. I was soon making up my own quests and rules for the game as well, for people to have a go with. So with all that in mind, you can imagine my excitement a year or so later when Gremlin released a computerized version of my favourite board game. Well, needless to say, as soon as I saw it and I had the money, I was out and actually rushed and bought a copy. Yes, I actually bought it. I wasn't disappointed either. HeroQuest was a wonderfully faithful adaptation of that board game, with all the rules and quests there in all being lovingly redrawn. Finally, I could play the game by myself anytime I wanted, and certainly did so, putting hours and hours into the game. For the game itself, well, you control up to 4 hero players. There's the barbarian, the dwarf, the elf and the wizard. Each have their own different attributes, as you would expect, with the barbarian and dwarf being really good fighters, and they can take quite a bit of damage. The wizard is terrible on the other hand at hand-to-hand combat, but can do lots of magic. Finally, the elf is kind of like a middle ground between the fighters and the wizard, being an okay fighter but also able to do some magic. So that's it really, you go off discovering the board as you progress. The first phase is the movement of your characters, and they will only see what the hero's line of sight will see, with it slowly being revealed as you progress. If you do find a monster, then attacking is automated and follows how the board game played. So for example, the barbarian is really good at attack, so he rolls 3 attack dice. This means that on these dice, if he gets more skulls than the monster's black defense roll shields, then he will defeat them. When defending, he would roll 2 dice, and if he was attacked by a monster and they got more skulls than his white shields, then you would receive a hit for each of those extra skulls. Alternatively to attacking in an empty room, you can search for gold in a room. Now this is a risk reward. Sometimes you can find objects, sometimes you can miss a turn, or a monster will appear from nowhere and attack you. But you can also search for traps and secret outdoors. And this is what I love about the game. The rules are quick and simple to learn, and yet the game is still deep in the tactics and really is fun as you progress. It really helps as well that the money and loot you receive on a previous quest you can use to buy equipment, making your heroes even tougher and stronger. And you really will need this as the later quests get mega difficult as you progress. So make sure that you play the quests in order if you really hope to have any chance to survive. One thing I will say though, if you aren't familiar to the board game, then it's essential that you find the manual. I have actually included a link for you, because otherwise you won't know what all the spells do or who can have what equipment, and it's a real trial by fire experience. The game, incidentally, was developed by little known developer 221B Software Development House for Gremlin. Now, the 221B did a number of other games, such as the C64 port of Predator 2, and after that they would do the Doctor Who game Dalek Attack. They also did Jetsons, the computer game, but the one that always sticks in my mind for 221B is their fantastic Alcatraz game. Now, on programming duties we have Michael Hart. Now, he's perhaps most famous for being one of the lead designers on the Die Hard trilogy games, but he's also worked on the Game Gear port of Mega Man and has gone on to be an engine builder for the LA Noire game. Since 2010, he seems to be a customer support representative, whatever that is, for Blizzard Entertainment, and has helped support all their recent games since 2010. On graphics we have Jason Wilson, a really great artist who has worked on many ports for the Amiga graphics, such as Pac-Mania, Space Harrier 2 and Laser Squad. Oh, and he also did the SNES graphics for the Robocod James Bond 2 game. After HeroQuest, Jason would work on the quirky Motorhead game, and then go on to do graphics for the fantastic medieval games on the PlayStation. The last game that I've found that he was involved with was Ghost Hunter for Namco on the PlayStation 2. The music as well in the game is an absolute treat, with Barry Letch doing stunning music in this game. It is true that the game music will begin to grate after a while, but that's only because you're playing the game for such long periods and there's only one music track. Yes, Barry Letch is one of those game musicians that often gets forgotten about, but he really shouldn't. He's worked on 240 games in his long career. Highlights are many, but there's Gauntlet Legends, Gauntlet Dark Legacy, Lotus Turbo Challenge 2, Rush 20049 on the N64 and other versions, Switchblade 1 and 2, Supercars 2, to name but a small number of his games. He's even the man behind the standard ringtones you get probably on your phone. On his website it didn't say which manufacturer he did the ringtones for, only saying it's the largest chip manufacturer. So my money is on the Samsung phones, but I could be wrong. But on this game, the music that he does doesn't disappoint, being an absolute gem and classic, being one of my favourite music pieces on the Amiga. His rousing title tune and the haunting in-game music perfectly captures the mood of the game, and for this, it's one of the game's many highlights for me. Yes, all in all, I love this game. Like the board game it's based on, it's an RPG light. A game you can dip in and out of, go on a quest and have some real fun with, without being so much worried with all the rules and seriousness involved. It's true that the game only has 13 quests, and that won't keep you going for long, but there's still much fun in being able to replay the quests already beaten. Thankfully, 221B did release an expansion disc, which was called Return of the Witch Lord that same year, and that gave you 10 more quests for you to enjoy. But be warned, this expansion disc assumes your heroes have played through the first game, and so be laden with lots of extra equipment. So naturally, these quests are far, far tougher than the original, throwing you right into the action from the beginning. Sadly, they were planning lots of other data discs as well, but due to the poor sales of this first data disc, no more were done. As you can tell, I adore this game. But what did reviewers of the time think about the game? Well, the one Amiga gave the game 91%, saying, HeroQuest manages to faithfully recreate the fun of the tabletop version without the player having to deal with all that paperwork. In one or two areas, Gremlins have actually managed to oversimplify things, however. The oversimplifying is mainly apparent in the combat area. A larger feeling of involvement would have been generated by even the simplest additions, such as the rolling of dice. As it stands, the fights are pretty bland and act more as a temporary obstacle than a major part of the excitement. The review then went on to criticise as well the limited animation, wishing that the magic used by characters would actually be shown in-game rather than a text description. Now, Amiga Action gave the game 87%, saying, Gremlin have built quite a reputation for themselves recently, and HeroQuest was eagerly awaited in the Amiga Action offices. The graphics are well drawn, the sound is atmospheric and the gameplay is brilliant. If anything, the computer version is better than the original. The game is hassle-free and doesn't require you to read through a book of rules. With the addition of the new scenario discs, you should be playing this game for years to come. Worth buying whether you're a fan of the board game or not. Excellent. Amiga Format gave the game 85%, saying, with the board game, imaginative folk could have easily configured their own quests once they've beaten the preset 14. Sadly, no such facility is possible with the computer version. A supplementary quest discs will be available soon, but this doesn't solve the problem. Unfortunately, the playback of HeroQuest encourages a quick finish, because it's easy-going RPG fun. Gremlin have managed to produce a computer doppelganger of the original board game bestseller, and 300,000 people can't be wrong, can they? Amiga Power gave the game 80% and said, I don't know if it's any advance on the board game or not, but Amiga HeroQuest is a highly entertaining game in its own right, and especially good for multiple players. Go on, broaden your horizon. So all in all, they're pretty favourable reviews from the magazines, although I do agree that the cynical lack of a construction kit to facilitate the planned constant stream of data disks is a real shame. But for those of you who like your fantasy and just want something not too deep and nice and accessible that can be done at your own pace, then this game is great to pick up. So anyway, that's what the reviewers thought. Incidentally, in researching this game, I did stumble across a recently produced unofficial fan remake of the board game on the PC. Now this is on the members.westnet.com.au/brick27/compgame.html. I'll give the link in the actual notes of the video. Now I downloaded this fan remake, choosing the isometric link and then the update, and had a quick go, and I found it all really impressive really, although it definitely is still quite buggy unfortunately. But at the time of doing the video I haven't really played it enough to determine all the controls, but from what I've seen of this version I really like. And even better, the people behind the remake have not only added the original quests, but also 2 expansion packs for it. There's a Return of the Witch Lord and the Keller's Keep, which is fabulous, so there's loads of quests for you to enjoy. So I'm definitely going to spend some time with this. And also another remake that he's done, which I noticed, which is the Space Crusade remake. So there you go. So until next time, see you later.